meeting. Welcome to the April meeting of the Employee Forum. And I am excited to have lots of guest speakers here today to share updates. I have a few updates of my own. I had the privilege of being invited to speak to the Board of Trustees a couple of weeks ago. I presented my remarks, about 10 to 15 minutes. I reminded them that staff are the ones who make the Carolina magic happen. And it leads to folks remembering us no matter where they land. Talked a little bit about the fact that even when I am abroad for work, if I'm wearing Carolina gear, I have folks stop me and tell me about a time when they came to Carolina. Reminded them that $25 million in cuts, even by attrition, means there are fewer people doing the same amount of work. And with an additional 500 undergrads every year, that work will continue to increase. And it's only a matter of time before we burn out ourselves. And that I did not want to see that happen, or to see the cuts that we lead result in us losing what makes us so very special and losing that Carolina magic. Those remarks, as well as the rest of the Board of Trustees meeting, is available on their website if you would like to see what happened this past month. So just letting you know, you can access that information. And then in addition, I hope everyone on the side, yep, I just remember that. I hope that everyone is enjoying the spring. It's been a little strange with the weather. Oh, somebody online. So I hope everyone is enjoying the spring. I am going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about delegate elections. They are going on right now. I do believe that elections will wrap up on April 13th. So if you have not yet voted in your division, please keep an eye out for a reminder email that will be coming out, and then get your vote in. You can vote for folks who are on the list, as well as add a write-in candidate. So if you fail to nominate yourself, or somebody failed to nominate you, you can write yourself in, or write in a coworker that you think would be a great representative for your division. So please keep an eye out for that reminder email, and we will be announcing who won those elections in the next within the next couple of weeks. Carolina Blood Drive. Renata or Katie, are you online to give an update for this?
Hey guys, I'm here. So the Carolina Blood Drive is in a couple of weeks on April 28th. So hopefully everyone will be there. It is a reading day. So you shouldn't have any exams. There should be nothing holding you guys back from coming. I will put out there that right now we do have a ton of spots open for donors, and we desperately need volunteers. So if you can, please go to our website, carolinabloodDrive.unc.edu, and please sign up to donate. If you can't donate, please come and volunteer. We'll take however many hours you can put out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Renata. Thank you. The Kay Winberg Hovius Outstanding Delegate Awards are coming up. Matt, do you have an update on that? So delegates, please keep an eye out on your email. There will be a ballot going out for those awards. Please do vote for your fellow delegates, and those will be awarded at our June meeting. Upcoming meetings, we have an executive committee meeting via Zoom coming up on Tuesday, April 21st, a STAC meeting on Wednesday, May 6th. That will be a hybrid meeting and at 9 o'clock in the morning. Likely the in-person session will be at AOB, but that has not yet been finalized. Our next full body meeting is Friday, May 1st at 9 o'clock. And that will be next door in G411 here in the Curry building in the dental school. And then the Vice Chancellor's Representatives meeting will be Thursday, May 14th, the week after graduation at 2 o'clock via Zoom. So I hope to see everybody there. All right, the next thing on our agenda is Provost Magnus Egerstedt. Last time he joined us from Zoom, And this time I am thrilled to say he is here in person. So come on over and I'll hand you the mic. It is all yours. Thanks very much for joining us.
Do you want me to stand anywhere particular? Really? I like to be a little more kinetic than that, but we'll. Fine. So first of all, thank you for having me. I think we need to start by acknowledging Rebecca winning first prize in the category Best Hat. So well done. I also want to echo something she said. So Rebecca gave a really effective presentation at the Board of Trustees meeting. I thought it was great. And what I liked is really this focus on, you talked about the Carolina magic and how important it is to keep an eye on what it is that we're ultimately trying to do together. And I really thought it was quite effective. The other thing I want to acknowledge is, as I was walking here, I got caught up in something called Family Day here in the Egerstedt School of Dentistry, which was an absolutely lovely event. These are first-year dental students who are about to go through what's called the white coat ceremony, where they get their white coats. And right before they do that, they invite their family members to campus to thank them for their support. And I thought that was absolutely lovely. They were handing out sugar cookies as part of this, and told me that this was a way of making sure that they had a solid business plan going forward as dentists, because there will be cavities. Why am I bringing this up? Well, I am right now deep in my first 90 days as provost, and I'm on a pretty significant listening tour. I'm trying to be out there as much as possible, because just like I discovered Family Day, there is so much stuff going on this campus, and I really need to be out for three different reasons. One is, ultimately, I am the bridge between the academic enterprise, between students, faculty, classes, research, and what goes on in the South Building. And I can only be an effective bridge if people know who I am, if people tell me things, if I'm not an abstraction. I have decided that part of my job early on has to be to make sure that particularly our students know who their provost is. And it is beginning to work, by the way. So the other night I was walking through campus fairly late, and some student on a bicycle biked by and said, "Provost," which to me was a sign of, it was a badge of honor, to be honest. I was really pleased with that. The other reason, though, that I'm out there a lot is I need to know what is going on this campus, because there is a lot of things. We're a massive enterprise. And then the third, which actually connects to the second, which is, I also want to tell effective stories about all the things that are happening. I really am hell-bent on making sure that we talk about the things that matter, that happens on this campus, loudly and proudly to the world, because there's so much good stuff on this campus, both in terms of how we're really changing students' lives in the classroom. And it's not only just students, sometimes it's entire families or even communities around these students. So that's one piece. Also the service piece, the fact that we are so important to the state of North Carolina, and then the research. So I'm on a storytelling tear as well. I was telling someone that I'm becoming an influencer, because I'm thinking in terms of content now. So am I creating content or not? So I wanted to share three things with you that I have learned so far in my travels across campus. One is, and I think this is really quite remarkable. Most universities, especially on the research side, there's a certain cadence to how you do things. You work with students, you do the research, you write the paper, and then you're done. Right? So the paper is the final product. You write the line on your CV, and then you move on to the next project. Here, that's not where things end. The paper is just one step on the way, and I really have noticed, and it doesn't matter if it's the School of Social Work, School of Nursing, School of Journalism, the college, there's always a question of then what? what is the impact of this thing that we have developed? And I love this focus on impact. How does this lead to new intervention strategies out in rural North Carolina? Or how does this lead to a product that we can license and commercialize? There's always a question of the impact, the next step. And that is not a normal standard operating procedure on college campuses. And I'm really beginning to notice that this is one of the things that make this place special. The other thing that I've actually noticed is every university on the planet is a little bit siloed, and people talk about silos. The silos aren't that real here. If there are silos, they're paper thin. People do collaborate, and I'm hearing two reasons why collaborations aren't occurring. And it's not because of silos. It's because people are really busy. That bothers me a little bit. It's very easy to do addition. Here's one more thing you need to do. It's very hard to do subtraction. So one of the things we're doing in the Provost office right now is looking at how can we actually make people's lives a little easier so we're not so busy. So that's one. And the other is just lack of information about what's going on across campus. So it's an information silo rather than a structural silo. The good news is that's easier to solve. So I was quite pleased to see this. The third discovery I made, it goes back to the Carolina magic. I refer to it as Carolina's gravitational pull. A lot of people come here, they go to school here, and then they go out into the world, but they come back. There's something unusual about this place in that sense. I think the Carolina magic is the right way of thinking about it. So let's make sure we don't break it. I heard you loud and clear there. Also doing, I also have a student curated bucket list. I've taken a sip from the old well. 2 days ago, I climbed the bell tower with our graduating class. I don't know if you've done it. It's not as hard as it seemed much harder than it was. 128 steps. You don't go all the way up, it turns out. Not quite. But I am trying to make sure that I am hitting a lot of the traditions. I've described myself as I'm drinking from a fire hose, and the fire hose is filled with Carolina Blue Kool-Aid because I am drinking the Kool-Aid. Right. So apart from being out there and drinking Kool-Aid, what am I spending my time on? There are some things that are really high strategic priority areas in the Provost office. One is really pulling campus together around big themes. AI and engineering is a big theme. There is a major kind of push and pull going on there. So the pull is workforce need. The push is student interest. Also, the reality is that the world is changing rapidly thanks to generative AI. And if we don't respond properly to it, we're just putting the head in the sand and pretending that this is going somewhere and we don't have to pay attention is not a viable strategy. It just isn't. And the one thing I want to say, and I think this is powerful, is that AI is not just for the STEM part of campus, right? It's something that touches all of us, and something interesting has happened in the world of technology. I'm an engineer, right? So skills that used to be highly sought after and well compensated, like computer programming, have almost become commodities in the post-Gen AI era. So what does it take to lead in an age of technology where certain things are commodities, access to information is instantaneous? I think it takes curiosity. I think it takes creativity. I think it takes storytelling. I think it takes problem solving. These are traditional liberal arts attributes. I actually think we're going to see a renaissance for the liberal arts thanks to what's happening with AI, not as a defense mechanism, but actually as a leading the charge. And Forbes recently released an article about the new Ivies. We are one of the new Ivies, on how are we preparing students for the age of AI. And they talked about what's happening at Carolina, particularly in this regard. And I think there is something very powerful there. And what it also means is that this is not a STEM exercise. This is something that will engage all of campus. Another thing I'm spending a lot of time on is storytelling, really trying to tell stories about not only the research, but also the people on this campus that makes the magic happen. So we're about to roll out we're starting with researchers, and we're going to do these high production value videos that really tell stories about the people behind the impact, because I also really love this idea of associating faces with some of these abstract things that are going on. So that's that. The third is we're looking over processes. I've started working closely with the deans, both in terms of how do we allocate resources, but also I really dislike spending all my time on the expense side of the ledger. All we're doing is arguing over how to spend or how to distribute a shrinking pie. Then we're not moving forward. So I'm also looking at how can we get new revenue sources, because we got them, right? And it's clear that industry has to be a major source of revenue for us. We are not perhaps quite as effective as we could be when it comes to industry engagement. So this is one area. I'm also looking at other funding mechanisms, because I personally don't accept that the pie is shrinking. It is, but let's make sure that we make it bigger. So processes and new revenue sources. And part of that is Carolina North. We've pulled together a task force, not to talk about Carolina North in terms of a real estate holding, which it is, housing and transportation, and there are interesting things happening there in that regard. But ultimately, it is a blank canvas for the university to do things that we couldn't do before, to really imagine what does this look in the teaching and the research enterprise, and as a way of engaging with industry. And I'm using three images when I'm describing Carolina North. I'm not allowed to call it a logo, so it's a graphic. I'm thinking of a graphic for Carolina North, and it's going to be ugly, but it's going to be great. It's an engine, because it's really an engine that's driving innovation in a way that we couldn't before. So an engine. On top of that, I'm going to put a magnet, because this is going to attract people to Carolina in a different way. And then on top of the magnet is a crystal ball, because it will allow us to see the future. And that, to me, is quite powerful. I know Nate Knuffman is coming later to talk about budgets. I just want to say one thing about the budget, because strategy without resources behind it just becomes hallucinations, right? It doesn't lead to anything meaningful. So we had a budget passed, $4.8 billion total budget. There are still cuts happening in some areas, but we also got $45 million in new investments to drive some of these strategic priorities. And these $45 million were distributed across 5 buckets. The biggest bucket is, how do we support enrollment growth? Because we can't just turn on the tap and have more students show up and pretend that we can just do business as usual, because we can't. One thing I want to point out is there is a little bit of confusion about what enrollment growth actually means. So the story is we're adding 500 students a year till we get to 5,000 more students. We're not going to get 5,000 more students coming in every year, because those students stay for 4 years, and 4 times 5,000 is 20,000. We're not going to have 20,000 more students on campus. We're going to have 5,000 more students on campus, which means we're actually going to grow slower than some of the stories around it. We also need to grow in a way that so we're adding 500 now. We're probably not going to add another 500 on top of that next year. Instead, we got to be much more gradual in how we do the growth, exactly because we don't want to create an experience that's not. By the way, did you all follow this math? It's kind of interesting, right? So if you have 500 students more showing up this year, and you keep it steady next year, that means year 2, you have 500 plus 500 more than you had today. Year 3, you have 500 plus 500 plus 500 more. So if we only increase the inflow by 500, that means we've increased the total number of students by 2,000 after 4 years. So that's the math that got confusing for some of us. Yeah. So that's one big bucket is how do we support enrollment growth. Another big bucket is labs, classrooms, and studios. How do we make sure that we actually invest and support and renovate the spaces that we have and create new spaces? So that's funding. We have funding for that. campus security and safety is the third bucket. We do have a bucket on AI and research. So a bucket to enable that type of activity, because this is where we're going. And then the fifth bucket is faculty hires, because we need more instructors also for these incoming classes of students. So I like this idea that we're lining up the budget also around the strategic directions we are going in. So that's really the report from the Provost's office. I gotta say, I've been here a month and a half. When you have kids, there's a saying in parenthood that the days are long, but the years are short. That is true for being a provost too. It feels like I've been here way longer than that. I've learned a lot. And I also got to say, I want to thank all of you because I felt very welcomed. I realize I'm still in a honeymoon phase, but there has been a genuine warmth and welcoming spirit. And I appreciate that very much. So with that, I am going to be quiet and take questions. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Annetta? There's a question in the chat. All right. Natalia has asked, what opportunities do you see for staff to play a more active role in driving innovation and efficiency across units, and how might those contributions be better recognized?
Yeah, I think those are two really good questions. I'm going to start with the second one. So April on any college campus, or the month before graduation, is a little bit of an endurance sport. There's a lot going on, and you know, just like when you're running a marathon, every now and then you got to stop and drink some water and eat the banana for energy. To me, recognitions and celebrations are our eating banana events. I've been to probably 3 award ceremonies the last 2 days, where it really allows us to take a step back and get energized and inspired by each other. But I do think that we should be doing more. And in fact, we've started talking about how can we do more to recognize and celebrate the people that really make this place move forward. So I hear you, and this is something that we're really working on, making sure that we celebrate each other more, because there is I love the fact that Carolina is not an ivory tower, right? This is a blue collar place in many ways. It's scrappy, but there's also some kind of, it's a humble place. We've looked at how people are winning awards also externally. We're not that great at promoting each other externally because there is humility on this campus. And one of the things I actually want to change a little bit is, yeah, let's stay humble, but still celebrate each other. So that was the second question. The first question is, how can you get involved? I think that's a really great question. I've started working with the deans because that's my my natural chain of command, where we've asked exactly that question. We had our last all deans meeting where we talked about, we cannot be in a situation where there is first and second class citizens on this campus. That just does not work. And part of that is making sure that out in the units, people are engaged and allowed to participate, not only, you know, in employer forums, which is staff talking about staff things, but actually in the strategic direction and the governance of the unit. So I hear you, and I think we've started that conversation with the deans. Comment.
And a comment in the chat. Just want to, this is from Sarah G. Just want to say it's refreshing to hear a leader recognize the work behind UNC's success, acknowledging we're doing a lot, and that's limiting our ability to collaborate, and nodding to our hard working teams behind the scenes that give their all leading up to commencement. Thank you for seeing us.
Thank you for that comment.
Yes, Natasha?
Okay. Hi, Natasha Young. Students, some of them that come out of Gillings, Hussman, public policy, all the things. So some of our highly recognized professional schools on campus. And I think what I've been seeing over the last couple of years is some of our students, particularly ones that might want to go into state, federal work or public health, are having a hard time finding jobs. And the job search process has been really discouraging to them. What do you say to those students that have gotten one of the best educations in the world at one of the most highly ranked and recognized professional schools on campus, but then have a difficult time finding the role that they're hoping for outside of college, whether it's 3 months out, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, as they're kind of navigating that time. Because I know April in my office is supporting our students as they're trying to figure out graduation and post-graduation plans and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there are a few moments in life where you truly level up, and going from high school to college is one of them. Graduating college is the big one, right? All of a sudden, this is the first time where the umbilical cord is completely cut and you're out there, and it can be disorienting. It can be scary. So I have conversations with students. In fact, I don't know if you've seen, I try to be at the pit as much as I can, just because that's where the students are hanging. It's hard to say 6 months out, but I'm talking to them about, the scary stuff that they're about to encounter. So one is, stay curious, stay up to date. It's really crushing if you start taking no's personally. And I keep telling them it's not you. And the job market has really become quite nuts. You used to, you submitted 5 applications and you got a job. Now you got to multiply that by sometimes 100, which means you get 499 no's. It's hard not to internalize that and start thinking that it's you, but it's not you, right? This is just the world we're living in. And I'm a father of twin daughters who are seniors in college right now. And I'm also seeing that in my own family, that there's a lot of angst just around what's going on. And I keep telling them, the world is different and it's not you, and hang in there. We are looking though, and I think this is quite important. I've been folded into the working group that's looking at enrollment growth to make sure that we actually look at what are the workforce needs, so that we're growing in directions that actually lead to employment. Having said that, so here's my big caveat. We don't know what the world is going to look like. And the jobs of the future are going to be very different from the jobs of today. And that is something that I keep leaning back on, which is, if we graduate students that have good foundations in something, and have this idea of curiosity, nimbleness, problem solving, storytelling, they are going to lead. But that's an abstraction. It doesn't help today. But I do think that we are actually going to graduate students that are superbly well positioned for this strange new world that we're all going to be living in 10 years. Thank you.
I think that's all the questions that we have. Thank you so much for your time,
Thanks for having me.
and good luck with the next month. It's going to be busy.
We're busy.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, Finance and Operations update. I think I saw Nate Knuffman, our Vice Chancellor for Finance and Operations, come in. So I will turn the mic over to him for our next update on a budget that we still don't have because, well, the General Assembly.
Thank you. Following Magnus and all the low energy and negativity, it makes sense for me to really come in and provide, updates on something like the budget, right? No, I appreciate the opportunity to give some updates. I actually do have some good news to start out with. Just our all funds budget was approved by our Board of Trustees 2 weeks ago, first meeting. So that if you have followed this process in the past, the last 4 or 5 years we've done this, it has taken multiple bites at the apple to get that done. So we were thankful and appreciative. We think there's some good alignment there, and we're happy about that. I also want to just say that doesn't happen by accident. There is a lot of hard work across campus that goes into producing this. Even just having the kind of conversations we have to get to that point, it's a lot of work across the campus, just thinking through our finance teams, others, just understanding that data information, being able to have those kind of conversations to get to that place. So big appreciation there. Let's see, I think we have some slides. Sure. Perfect. Yes, perfect. So before getting into the budget information, I always think it's helpful just to think about the environment we're operating in. And I think the big theme is uncertainty, right? It continues to be that at the federal level, you know, on campus in terms of grant funds and where we're at, we've had some really a slowdown in new awards. And so F&A dollars are down about 6%, and units are certainly feeling this because we have a formula allocation that moves out to units. So we're certainly wrestling with that on campus. I think at the federal level, we're watching the budget process unfold. The administration put forward funding levels that were much, much lower. Congress is not aligned with that. We'll see where that shakes out. We are watching. Beyond where the funding level shakes out, there's that question of what will those funding agencies actually let out in terms of awards. So that's another thing we're tracking really closely. There's also the F&A dollars are important to us, right? And that formula, there's been a lot of conversation around changing that model. You know, our best thinking on this right now is that that conversation is likely to continue for some time, and that timeline is getting pushed out. So on that piece, you know, at the state level, we do not have a comprehensive budget for this year. We're now, 9 months plus into this fiscal year. So the good news is there have been some deliberations that have started now for the fiscal year 27 for our next budget next year. And so some discussions starting to happen. There also, the revenue forecast for the state just came out. It revised current year revenues up more than 300 million. It revised next year revenues up by over 900 million. Both those things are positive. However, what that does is it also hits revenue levels in total that will hit triggers. And so what that means is once a certain revenue level is hit, our income tax, our personal income tax rate declines by 0.5% the next tax year. And so really, even with additional revenue, taxes are likely to fall. That's the projection, and our revenue then corresponding as overall will fall some. So there's still some pressure in the budget, and we certainly are tracking most closely enrollment funding. That's really important to us. We have $15 million request in the legislature for that for this year. The system level, continued focus on administrative spending and fiscal responsibility. That's where their focus is. Next slide. And I wanted to show this table. You all have seen this in the past, but this is a little bit different version of it. It's showing our budget savings strategy, the different areas and the savings totals, but it's broken out by all years of implementation. So you can see that timeline. I think we've already achieved $17.5 million this current year. Beyond that, as we start to look ahead for this next fiscal year, we expect to get 45 million. And then really it takes, but importantly, that big dollar figure of the 70 that got plussed up to 89. So a couple things to note. That increase, you'll remember the Board of Trustees asked us to increase the amount of savings we were going to get from administrative staff reductions. So you see that kind of reflected in this chart. That's why the bottom line total has gone up over those 4 years. Also worth noting, it takes multiple years to implement this. Some of the strategies, like the financial aid piece, we did not want to impact current students. And so that takes a while to phase in. Same thing with the Elevate or the faculty hiring program. That was, again, their 4-year awards. And so we were just letting that cycle through some. So that's why it stretches out 4 years. Other thing I'll note is just the savings that we're achieving in this next fiscal year that we're projected to save. That's really what's allowing us to make the investments in the institution in the other ways. So this is a big part of our ability to actually invest in what we think are critical priorities. Next slide. Okay. I wanted to touch on administrative staff efficiencies in this area. I know this is an area that's important to all of us. You know, a couple things to see on this chart. First, and I can't tell, are the dotted lines in there? There is. Okay, good. So one thing to note is, so this is what we're looking at here is since 2019 to current, kind of our administrative staff salary base. Administrative staff, again, I think there's a lot of confusion around what administrative staff is. It's a lot of things outside of just faculty, right? It's people operating our energy plants. It's our attorneys. It's a range of people that fall into that bucket. But number two, if we were to implement, and as we move down this path towards implementing the Board of Trustees resolution, compared to the pace we were on, you see that box, that's roughly $60 million. So what's happened is we've really, in terms of the pace we were on, in terms of administrative staff increases, it's just leveled out and kind of come back down a little bit. All that to say, if you look at that dotted line, there's a yellow-green, I think, dotted line, hopefully on there. Yes, there is. Good. What that shows is from the 2019 level, if you compare to that level, that isn't to say we haven't increased administrative staff or administrative salaries. In fact, it's up over $100 million compared to 2019. If you look at that. Now, of course, we all know part of that equation is right. It's legislative increases that were mandated. About half those dollars were just dollars coming in from the General Assembly saying, hey, this is for administrative staff increases. But the other piece, if you think about it in context, that other portion of increase is really kind of on the same level of what our student credit hours have increased and research awards. So it's kind of more in line with what's happened over those 5 or 6 years. So that's kind of where we are headed a little bit on the administrative staffing side. Is it not showing up well? Okay. Okay. All right. So all that preface, again, work on some of the budget savings, enabling us to kind of make investments. No, it's okay. I know there's some animation. Okay, there we go. And so this is really looking at our budget. Left-hand side, just the big revenue categories, expense categories in fiscal year 27. And then on the right-hand side, some depiction of what's changing relative to last year. So, I think importantly first, you see the budget's balanced. You see the 4.807 in revenue billion versus 4.793 billion on expenses. You'll also see, you might look at the change side and you say, well, wait, there's $118 million in revenue compared to $168 million in expenses. That's not balanced. So that's change. It's change relative, the expense size larger because we actually intentionally, we're building up reserves last year, in some areas, and now we're executing on those reserves in this current year. So that's why that's a little bit higher than, but that's, an example would be housing, where that with our new residence hall coming online, they're spending into some of those reserves to actually complete some of the planning there. Makes sense. A couple notes on each of these. So on appropriation, you see up $7 million. It actually should be up 15. That's what we were expecting from the legislature in terms of enrollment funding. If you'll remember, the system office and board of governors reallocated about $8 million to other institutions as part of a performance funding reallocation among the system. Tuition and fees, you see that up? That's intentional strategy. We have been, we are sensitive to the fact that in our fiscal situation, we have to leverage all of our tools. It's not just expense side management. We're trying to do anything we can on the revenue side. That's what you see on the tuition. So you see it up a little bit. The other thing I'd point out, F&A and contracts, you see those down slightly. That's just reflecting that weakness some on the research side. When we look down at expenses, the big area is salary and benefits. You see this kind of offsetting some increases in faculty offset with some reductions on some of the administrative side. Without that, really what's happening is a lot of an increase in clinical activity and clinical staff. What you're seeing is the physician compensation didn't reflect where their productivity was. And so there's a concerted effort to try to address that. Next slide. I wanted to share just a few of the areas of focus for us through the process. So a couple of things. We're really proud of the work we've done on campus, and again, collective effort on campus, just to increase transparency and our ability to have, I think, a more informed discussion of budget and budget priorities. I think it's worth noting, why do we prioritize fiscal responsibility so much? And you think about our institution, one, it's that commitment to affordability. That's really central to what we do. When we operate in a fiscally responsible manner, it allows us to keep prices lower for students and tuition lower for students. And that's a kind of a core value of our institution and the state. The second piece is why do we do this? It helps allow us to reinvest in the institution in other areas. And I think that's really important. Second or next slide. So safety continues to be a top priority. This is part of what safeguards our brand. It protects our enrollment and revenue. It helps with liability and risk. It also supports academic performance and well-being. So the first area, that real-time information center, this was a top priority for Chief James. What it does is it brings all video feeds from different platforms onto one. So it should improve the efficiency of emergency response. Cameras, this is dollars to help expand and modernize camera coverage and access control for buildings. You also see the critical infrastructure improvements. These were the top life safety issues that our facilities team identified. And so we have some dollars set aside to address those, and then increase Narcan availability on campus as well. Next slide. ROI to the state, always central. I've talked a little bit about enrollment funding, but so our budget, this is the single largest item in the budget, is increases to academic units for enrollment funding. It really reflects the growth and where there are cost pressures. There are real costs associated with enrollment growth. There also are real benefits to the state. With the state system looked at an ROI study about what return is generated from a degree here at Carolina and going through this process. And it's, we were one of the strongest performers, if not the strongest in the system. I do think it's important to note that our budget, what we put together, assumes the state will provide $15 million for enrollment funding as part of the budget process. So again, we've got that kind of loaded in. With enrollment growth comes pressure on our classrooms and our labs. This budget puts some dollars in to renovate classrooms and labs and really make sure that the condition of those spaces isn't a limiting factor in terms of utilization. We know we need to fully utilize our assets there. The budget fully funds the civic life and leadership, and then also identifies and sets aside some dollars for faculty startup and STEM and engineering. Those are areas with our largest enrollment increases and also some of our more expensive price tags. On the AI, this budget allocates funds to the provost to allocate for both academic and research. It also sets aside some dollars to help modernize our infrastructure for operations. We're going through this process with Service First. You'll hear from Scott more updates there. But a complement to that has to be improving how we work with some of our tools. And so we tried to set aside some dollars for that as well. It also, some research has compliance, very high compliance requirements. And we want to ensure that we're able to meet those compliance needs and mitigate risk. So this budget does set aside some critical dollars for facilities maintenance as well. Next slide. And so I think just adding it all up, here you see, what is this budget about? It's about enrollment growth. It's about classroom and lab support. It's about startup funding, AI, and safety. And when you think about where those align with those priorities we kind of articulated at the beginning of the year, we think it really sends a strong message to where our priorities need to be as an institution. And we were really happy that the board had alignment there. And the next step in the process really is this will be reviewed by the Board of Governors at their next meeting. So they'll be looking at it. Again, reviewed. It was approved by our trustees. And with that, I think that might be the end of my slides. So I'm happy to address any questions.
I do have some in the chat. I'll go ahead and start with those. Kira Jones asked, as budgets continue to constrain our ability to offer raises or additional pay for increased workloads, work taken on because we haven't been able to fill positions or bring in new needed staff, what innovative strategies are leaders considering to retain talented staff? Are alternative benefits such as gas cards, increased comp time accrual, or other flexible incentives part of these conversations?
Yeah, it's the central challenge, right? How do we've got these, being a public entity, a state entity, we have these constraints on our ability to provide either salary increases, right? A lot of that's governed by the state. And even some of these programs that were referenced in that question, our ability to do some of that is limited. We would be very open to exploring any of those pieces that are allowable to do. I think when we've tried to push on some of those areas, we've run into some hurdles in the past. That doesn't mean we couldn't explore more. So I think we need to think creatively about how we're able to recognize and reward employees who are taking on more responsibility as part of this. And so I think that's going to be a central focus. I also want to note, as some of the restructuring takes more, I think we have more clarity on what that looks like. I envision us being able to go to the system office and be able to make the case to compensate employees who are taking on more responsibility, to compensate them more. I do envision having that conversation and being able to push on that point. We've already started to lay some of that groundwork with them. Again, we're not there. So I say this, we don't have a vision exactly what that looks like, but I do think that's a logical outcome. And I do think we're going to be willing to make that push. And I've heard some receptivity to that.
And as a follow-up to that, Kristen Chavez had a comment saying, I think it is important to note that in practice, we've basically had pay cuts with stagnant salaries because of the increased costs of living, higher health insurance, premiums, et cetera. Paychecks don't go as far as they should, especially for our lower paid staff. Next question from Lexi. What has gone into determining what positions should be cut? Is this putting a burden on the remaining positions to cover those cut roles?
Well, we're in the process right now, and Scott will talk more to this as part of the service first. I assume this is referencing the service first or the administrative staff, just how we're thinking about that. Scott will be able to expand on that, but we've been going through a process really by each area, whether it's HR, finance, IT, research, administration. Communications has been kind of the furthest ahead, and Scott will be able to share a little bit more on that piece. But there's been a lot of work to try to look at a new structure versus current. In that transition, there's what we're calling an HR evaluation, just what that looks like. I do think I don't want to get in front of Scott, but I'll just share, like even just using what's happened with communications and what we found as instructive. There were several vacancies, right, as part of that when we're looking at those two, and we've said all along layoffs would be a last resort, and it looks like some of the savings targets that we had at least contemplated are going to be able to be achieved just through attrition in terms of those areas. So again, I think that's important to note in terms of how we're thinking about those. But where and how are we making those decisions? We're relying on the leads in those areas and those work groups to really help inform that.
Thank you. Next question. Many of us are trying, from Natalia Neal, our vice chair, many of us are trying to better understand how the university is weighing recent investments in athletics and faculty hiring alongside ongoing staff reductions. So thank you for sharing how the university is evaluating and communicating the return on investment of those decisions. But how are you ensuring they remain aligned with our core academic mission and long-term workforce stability?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the central challenge each year as we go through a budget process, and this is a really complex, large organization, $4.5+ billion operation, and there's dynamic market elements on all parts, right? You mentioned athletics. There's certainly, that world has changed a tremendous amount. It's requiring institutional investment to remain, to kind of meet our standard. We also believe there's a lot of return on that in terms of just our brand and what it does for our institution. But we do have to balance that type of investment, which, by the way, I do want to note on the athletics piece, there is also significant dollars that come from outside of anything to do with, they generate from our donors and other pieces, significant dollars to help with even any incremental increases there. But you're right, central to the question is, how do we balance across those? And that's really, I think, why the budget process is so important. We have leadership from across the institution be able to weigh in and think about how we allocate resources within there. And I think largely protecting that academic mission, which I think was noted in the question, is central to what we're trying to do. I mean, I think on the savings, on the savings areas, we tried to really protect that core academic mission when we think about that, and to read.
Hey, Nate, we just lost sound on you, so we missed like the entire back half of what you just said. I still can't hear you.
He is actually muted over Zoom. So if someone can unmute him over Zoom, I think that would be helpful.
Is it better now?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me see if I don't know if I can remember the back half of what the answer, but I'm happy to try to. I think the question is a really good one, because at its core, it is how do you make, when you make budget allocations, how do you ensure those are aligned appropriately with all the different pushes and pulls, right? You've got athletics in one area, you have maybe some savings being found in administrative areas, and in trying to increase dollars to faculty in other areas. How do we think about that? We have a provost, chancellor, all of leadership weighing in, thinking through all those different priorities that we lay out as part of that budget process to try to think about how we allocate those dollars, right, in the resource allocations. I do want to say, and I wanted to note, the single biggest area of investment is those are enrollment allocation dollars. So any area growing is getting significant resources, and there's flexibility for those academic leaders in those schools to be able to allocate those dollars to help address some of those areas where there's significant pressure. And so again, we try to protect the core academic mission, even with the savings side of the equation. Really, if you look at how that's kind of footing up, we're really trying to protect that.
Thank you. Still is highlighted, and this is from Sarah G, is as a return on investment to the state. So when does UNC plan to release the audit that was recently completed?
That's something that the chancellor and provost have talked to others about. I'm not aware of any plans to release it.
That was my understanding from the faculty meeting, is that is not being released. And that's something that we can address next month when the chancellor is present for remarks. How much money have we spent on cameras, and how are we determining their return on investment? Feels like a waste of money and a blow to the feel on campus is knowing you're being constantly watched, creating the type of culture UNC really wants. Surveillance does not necessarily equal safety.
Yeah, I think it was instructive to many of us looking what happened at Brown University recently in the last year, where, tragedy there, but, there was an inability to get any kind of really good visual. The lack of camera on the campus really hurt law enforcement's ability to be effective in that area. And certainly there's a balance there, and I appreciate that question, but it is critical to provide safety in a safe environment at the institution. We do think cameras play a role in that. This is just helping to try to get to a stage where we've been increasing some of the cameras on campuses, and this is just an effort to try to continue to add support.
How, Natasha? No, go ahead.
My question is actually going back to the return on investment with skill leadership. Skill is being, I guess, pulled out specifically to be invested in. And the reason I'm asking that, because I know we've seen the centers that were recently closed that had majors associated with them. Skill has a couple of minors, but does not actually have bachelor programs, if I'm remembering off the top of my head and I'm looking on their website. In fall 24, they enrolled about 85 students in their courses. And if I'm remembering the numbers correctly, I was seeing about 1 million being allocated towards skills specifically, and also kind of in the same lens of the 1 million being sent towards that review, again, that I know none of us are currently seeing. So why is skill a school and program that's being invested in separately outside of even the new school around AI and data or anything like that? Can you justify that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that question. I mean, I don't think it's uncommon when you have a new academic school, new academic program to have some dollars up front. I mean, data science has enjoyed a big bump. Now, a lot of that came from the legislature, right? And that really helped with data science, but that's really helped jumpstart them. And I think you're now starting to see the credit hours and other things come in, and our funding formula is kind of helping them maintain. I think you're still in that ramp up stage with skill where there's that need. And when they're forecasting that need and again, credit hours down the road, catching up, there's a gap. And so what we're doing is we felt it was responsible to fund that. So yeah, I think that's.
But was there not also funding given for skill initially by the legislature?
There was, I think it's $2 million. And so their ramp though, in terms of where they're looking at in terms of hiring staffing and ultimately the amount of credit hours they'd like to teach in degrees, there's a gap between that, like where they're building for next year and the resource needs and what that funding would allow from the legislature. And so we felt it was responsible to make that investment there to kind of, I guess, address that gap.
And as part of that been because of the lack of retention for faculty in positions in skill?
I don't think it's lack of retention. I actually think it's ramping up.
Okay.
So some of the faculty hiring there, which is putting that pressure on the expense.
Thanks, Nate.
From Sergi, how much money have we spent on, oops, I already asked that one. I forgot to scroll. From Chrissy Greenberg, how does the Great Resignation and rebound impact the personnel spending stats? And how will we continue to offer competitive compensation and ensure offset for inflation when personnel savings continue into future years? Multi-part question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Great Resignation, certainly we did see a lot of that. When we look at that turnover rate data over time, you saw coming out of the pandemic that dip. Then you also see this pretty large increase since then, right? In terms of snapping back. I think that's also what's generating some of the, I think, focus from external parties on our staffing levels and where we kind of sprung back really aggressively there in terms of where we're at in the hiring side. On the turnover rates, we've stabilized some since then. So, you know, we have actually stabilized some, and I'd be happy to bring back at the next meeting some more data to go deeper on that, or we could also have Link do that as well as part of the HR evaluation, just to look at turnover rates, because I actually think that's an important thing to monitor over time, just what that's looking.
Right. And I know we're running, we're getting close to time. How does our real estate portfolio, which has grown exponentially since the early 2000s, help support our overall expenses, support employee housing needs, and allow further investment in our campus?
Yeah, I think real estate plays an important role, right? When you think about our institution in the big picture, when we're talking dollars, it's people in our space, right? And that as we're growing, it puts a premium on making sure we have adequate space. That's also core to the student experience. So, you know, that's why we're trying to invest in a new rec and wellness center. That's why we have a 10-year master plan on housing that's looking at, and we're starting to really have the first new residence hall built in over 20 years. That's why we have a plan to update and add a significant number of beds over the next period of time. So real estate undoubtedly plays an important role. And obviously you've heard a lot about Carolina North and what it could mean in terms of how we continue to grow and our mission there. And so it's in many ways an exciting time to think about how that takes shape and how that could help us serve the state moving forward.
Thank you. From Brian Andrag, creative thinking about how to reward employees was one driver for pushing several large classifications of employees to EHRA non-faculty over 6 years ago, with a promise that this would better allow competitive salaries. That not only hasn't happened, it has been continually excused away as coming soon. How do we have faith that any creative solutions for employee remuneration will actually help employees?
I want to make sure I understood. The question was the move into EHRA and the idea that it would allow additional dollars to come to those positions.
That seems to be the question. Brian, are you available to clarify?
Yeah, can you hear me, Nate?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly that. You know, IT classifications generally, more than 6 years, what is it, 8 now, were, encouraged to move to EHRA so we could use market rates to be more competitive with the salaries, especially in the triangle. We've seen nothing happen in that space over that time, and have repeatedly been told that those new market rates and new bans and new encouragements would be coming soon. And they've been coming soon ever since that change, and it just hasn't seen the light of day. So that was creative thinking. How do we trust new creative thinking is going to do anything different?
Yeah, very fair question. I'd like to better understand that data and look at that. I think you raise a great point, because we'd have the ability to look back on what's happened with IT, with those IT ranges, and be able to see that and test that and be able to use some of that information to help inform that discussion with the system office. Link can provide more information on this. There is an update on where we're looking at some of those ranges. We've had some challenges in being able to get those lifted based on market data with the system. We've had some challenges there. But I can say that I do know that we are trying to actively look at that to try to make our case stronger. So I like, the point you raised, and I think it's one that we should follow up on.
Well, I know we're getting close to time, so I'll go ahead and turn things over to Link Butler. And we have a few additional questions in the chat. I'll pass along to you after the meeting. Thank you very much, Nate. Appreciate it. All right, Link Butler, are you available online?
Actually, actually, hello all. My name is Kathleen Guerra, and I'm filling in for Link today, and just wanted to take a few minutes to get started to recognize some of our ULE graduates from our recent class. So for background, I am the Senior Director of Organization and Professional Development in the Office of Human Resources. And for those of you who are not aware, our ULE program stands for University Leadership Education and Development Program, and it is an intensive program for high-performing, high-potential managers. We just celebrated graduation yesterday with 27 fantastic leaders across campus. This was a really intensive program that they completed in, a 7-month program where they participated in a 360 assessment. They attended training and classes on crucial conversations, negotiation, teaming, a range of different topics, and also participated in team projects to make a positive impact on campus. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize them. And in particular, I want to call out Charliza Rice, who is a member of our Office of Human Resources and also an employee forum delegate. So just wanted to congratulate them all. If you know them, please do send them congratulations. And I'm sure you'll be seeing more positive news about them and work well in upcoming issues. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jessica Procel, who will give us an update on the performance management season and where we are today. Jessica.
Thank you, Kathleen. I will be sharing my screen. All right, just one quick second. I appreciate your patience. Thank you, everybody. I just have a few quick updates in regards to our performance management season. So I'll just go through some key dates in our performance timeline. I'm going to reintroduce our open enrollment setting goals workshop and just remind everyone our resources for the season as well. So let's start with our timeline. So right now we are in the manager review stage, which runs through April 30th. Now, this is where the managers are reviewing appraisals. They are reflecting on the self-assessments that were submitted, and they're going to be preparing for that feedback and submitting the appraisal over to HR for that HR checkpoint. And after this step, the appraisals go through HR checkpoint, and the performance conversations should be happening between May 21st through June 10th. This is where your manager will sign and release your appraisal, and you'll be meeting with them as well. Now, as you can tell in the timeline, managers and employees should continue these conversations and also be discussing the goals for the upcoming performance cycle. Just a quick reminder, during the manager review window, which again, it's April 1st through the 30th, managers can make edits to the appraisal at any time, regardless of the status. So this includes appraisals that have not been started, are in progress, or have even been submitted. So again, you can go ahead and make any changes. And after May 1st, once that appraisal is completed, any changes will require a help desk ticket. So what's next? As we continue through the season, our goal is to support not just the process, but also support those meaningful performance conversations. And if you haven't had the opportunity to join us in any of our workshops that we had earlier this year, we do have a refresh of the Setting Goals, Balancing Performance and Development workshop. So this session is designed for both employees and managers, and it's going to focus on the foundations of strong goal setting. We have practical and hands-on activities, and it's going to help participants create goals that are clearer, more meaningful, and just better connected for both performance and development. We will be also exploring AI, as we know that it's some of what the university is developing, and we have the lab prompt as well, where again, we're going to be providing some guidelines when it comes to setting goals and having a thought partner with AI. So I'll be dropping the links. I'm not sure if my Kathleen was sharing those, but please register today. We did open it up for managers first. So now is your opportunity for employees. As always, spaces are limited, so we encourage you to register as soon as possible. And as always, here's a reminder of our resources that are available to support you during the performance season. We have our virtual office hours, and this is the time to join us with any questions, any process guidance, or if you're having some difficulties navigating Carolina Talent. So we'll drop in that link, and we are available, as you can see here, until May 21st on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So please, if you have any questions, and we also go into breakout rooms. So this is the perfect time if you need a specific question and you are need to be in a private setting. We also go into breakout rooms, so not everybody gets to share that information publicly. Also, quick reminder, F&O is in the process of moving some of our HR content under a new URL structure, just to make sure that you don't run into any broken links during the transition. We're going to be using go.unc.edu/performance. So this will always redirect you to the correct location. So again, our website is a great resource for you to use. And to help you navigate Carolina Talent, we continue to promote the Performance Hub, which includes step-by-step guides, FAQs. We have some screenshots, and really great useful resources that you can utilize at any time. And that is most of my updates. So thank you. I appreciate your time today. I'll pause to see if we got any questions, but again, you can always reach me by email or by phone. The email is performance_management@unc.edu.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. And if you could send me that PowerPoint, I can include that in our meeting follow-up for folks. That would be great.
Absolutely.
Teresa, I see that you've got your hand up.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me. Yes. Jessica, I just want to follow up. This is Teresa Silsby from the Business System Help Desk. Jessica did mention if you have issues, then you need to put in a ticket. There is a ticket out when you go to help.unc.edu. There is a request for Performance Management Carolina Talent. Also note on that request, there are different options in a drop-down box of what the request is for. And so if you have a request type that you need to add specifically a co-planner, for example, that is a request that has to be done by the team, not by the Business System Help Desk. We can offer guidance, but that ticket, if you select that as your request type, it will route directly to the folks that need to do that and bypass my team. Now, I'm not one that would always say bypass my team because we're always there to support you and folks in this process. But I just wanted to mention that because that way it can speed it up a little bit. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Teresa. Any questions on the floor? All right, next I think we've got Jessica Pyjas with our well-being updates.
Thank you very much. I am also just going to share a few slides. All right, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for saving me some time. I just wanted to thank everybody who came out, promoted, or volunteered at the Total Wellbeing Expo. That was on March 18th. We saw about 1,200 employees come out that day. It was a colder day than we typically experience during March. But we had full chair massages. We had more than double people participate in the fitness and meditation sessions offered this year. Lots of great attendance with the cooking demos and virtual sessions as well. So I just wanted to share some pictures of the event. If you did not see the article that went in the well on the 24th, we had a lot of great vendors, 80 vendors that came out, our pet therapy dogs, and a wonderful performance by the Bouncing Bulldog. So thank you all who came out and promoted the event throughout the day. I also wanted to remind you that another way to show employee appreciation is to nominate an employee for a Governor's Award for Excellence. This nomination process is staying open a little bit later this year, so nominations can be received through April 28th. Again, this is through the Office of State Human Resources, and there are 7 nomination categories: customer service, efficiency and innovation, human relations, outstanding government service, public service, safety and heroism, and the spirit of North Carolina. Also, you'll see in the well that went out earlier this month, April is National Financial Literacy Month. So just reminding you of the great resources that you have available to you through Bright Dime to monitor your budget, our Financial Fridays, and our on-site appointments. Empower is going to be going to the Keenan Center through June on a monthly basis, and their next visit day will be April 16th. And then TIA comes here monthly to the AOB, and their next on-site day is April 28th. So do make sure to schedule those appointments. And of course, virtual appointments are always available to you. And then I'm just going to leave you with this note that TIA will be sponsoring an in-person with some virtual opportunities to attend their Lunch and Learn on Friday, April 24th. Their session is investing basics, getting the most out of your retirement plan. For those who attend in person, lunch will be provided by TIA. And then again, those virtual opportunities are available to you as well. So I will drop those links into the chat box as you continue on with your meeting, but let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out via Teams or emails. Good seeing you all.
Thanks, Jessica. Right. We are now going to turn to Service First. And first up, we have Natalia Neal. But before we do that, I wanted to, I had a couple of questions in the last week or so regarding how to provide feedback to the folks in Service First. And just wanted to let you know the website is servicefirst.unc.edu. You can always send them to the employee forum and we'll pass them along, but you can also reach out to Service First directly on their website. Down towards the bottom, there is information, or actually in the middle, for their drop-in office hours. And then if you click on the questions and comments link, there is a form that you can fill out so that they can reach back out to you with an answer to your question. And then they have their FAQs, which may or may not answer the question that you have. So check that out first, or submit a question directly to the Service First team. So just wanted to bring that up before I turn the floor over to Natalia.
Hi, Rebecca. Do you think you can share my slides for me?
Sure thing. Give me just a minute.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. Um, so good morning, colleagues, everyone. I just want to start by thanking everyone across campus who participated in the February listening sessions on Service First. I also want to extend special gratitude and thanks to both the planning committee and the facilitators who supported our sessions. We could not have done it without you. We definitely, had a lot of participation, and the feedback was thoughtful and invested in the success of the university. So thanks to everybody. The first thing that we wanted to make sure that we highlight, a key takeaway, was that staff are not resisting change. They're specifically asking for clarity. One of the most consistent themes that we heard was that, staff are asking for consistent communication about what is changing, why it's changing, and how decisions are being made. We also noted communication gaps, just transparency, two-way communication is something that is definitely noted as being desired. There were concerns about sustaining service levels without overextending staff. Staff were also concerned about, uh, there were concerns around the attrition strategy. And then also, finally, there was a broader theme around trust. Okay, so next slide. The two things that we thought were the most important takeaways from, and not most important, but I would say top priority. We met with Service First, and we did ask respectfully for some confirmation on two things we thought were very important. So the transparency and clear communication. We expressed a strong need for more accessible communication. And then we also highlighted while we understand the rationale for using attrition as a strategy, there were meaningful concerns about its long-term impact without a clearly defined workforce plan. And so we're hoping that today, during the updates, we receive some information that staff will be receiving more communication and a definite plan around the attrition strategy. Okay, so next slide. So moving forward, the employee forum will continue to provide constructive feedback to the Service First team by hosting additional listening sessions in April. The first one will be next week on April 16th at 11. That is a virtual session that's going to be held via Zoom. And The second session will be in person on April 22nd at 11 a.m. And that's going to be in 1301 McGavin Greenberg Hall. These are both going to be held for staff in finance, HR, and research administration. We'll be sending out an announcement, an invitation to all staff immediately following the meeting today. And so that's all from me. I'm going to pass it over to Scott so he can give us his updates. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Natalia. And I believe the mic is up there for you. I'll bring up your slides.
Good morning. Good to be back in front of everybody here live at the Employee Forum. As Natalia her voice is so calming, or is it just me? I needed that before standing up here. But the information that we received from the listening sessions for Employee Forum, we have some prepared comments to follow up with that. They're not perfect, right? There's still going to be some gaps. But the intent, hopefully the slides that we've got will give you a little bit of a framework for that partnership with ongoing Employee Forum showing up, the town halls, office hours that we've got every month, and then also the listening sessions moving forward.
Hang on 1 second. For some reason, I closed it. Oops.
That's okay. Just in general, we had a Q&A office hours this week. If you were able to join that, it was a spirited start. And I think pointing out the fact that the one good thing about being at UNC-Chapel Hill for my journey, whether it was a student, now as a staff member, faculty member, leader, is that, it's always got this collaboration. But then when you start picking the scabs of it, it can unfold pretty quickly. And I would be totally misleading if I said that Service First doesn't have some big hurdles to be successful. And if you recall back in June and July, as we were doing due diligence, and I'm just stalling until the slides run, as we were doing due diligence on why past efforts of shared services have failed on campus, it was really two-folded reasons. One was governance on campus, like having a consistent push to be able to achieve something that, for all intents and purposes, using the word transformative, it will transform the operations of the university. If we do it well, and from what other perspectives from other campuses, it will transform. Now, transformation comes with a lot of different hurdles as well. And so for us, the other aspect that Nate kind of went into as well was the environment around us has dramatically changed. And for us to be able to use this discussion and having it more broadly done on campus versus a third party coming in and doing it for us, the rub of timelines and when things will happen will always be a challenge. My personal commitment since stepping into the role in June is to try to offer a few different things. I'm going to show up. My team's going to show up. I'm going to give you the information I've got that is not HR specific material I just can't share. But the challenges we've been hearing throughout is like, what is it in terms of the overall impact? We're going to use this forum. We're going to use the Q&As and office hours to do that. And then hopefully that ongoing collaboration will exist. But just want to put a pin post the Q&A office hours this week. It was an interesting start. And I want to make sure that you know from my personal commitment of showing up, I'm going to show up, right? And as I was saying to my team post that call, one of the things for me that's most important is good or bad, I believe in shared services, right? I believe in it. I've worked in it throughout my career. I have plenty of conversations with peers that are doing this. And so that's what you get, right? Regardless of feedback we get in the town halls or less than collaborative, the start of it. But as we continue to evolve, my commitment to this, just like the information you all are giving us with these listening sessions, my intent is to show up and be able to respond with the information that I've got. Next slide. So what do we hear? I think it aligns with a lot of the material that Natalia presented. We understand that there's a general support for change, but that comes with a lot of information that's needed. The hope throughout this was to be able to provide clarity on the why, which we've been striving for. And then also where I do agree that we're at this point, the HR evaluations, that the level of detail and being able to confidently achieve these goals are something that we will continue to pursue. So we're aligned with communications, the approach as we get into implementation, in particular with university communications and marketing. What is that overall workforce strategy for those team members that are moving more central? And we're going to learn a lot from that initial implementation of UCM. I do believe that our HR team, along with the operational leaders, both embedded within the units and centrally, are all aligned to make sure that the transition goes as smoothly as possible. Again, going through change myself throughout the course of my career, there's going to be bumps. But the intent is to be able to share the information all the way down to the timelines, where I think we have a better feel for what the timelines for other functional areas are now after the first two or kind of entering phases of HR evaluation. And then the last question that we've got in terms of concerns of service quality, knowledge, and sustainability, it's intent to be able to come back and show that there's progress, not just in terms of general wording, but actually data that supports the quantitative and qualitative success of Service First. Next slide. So what are we doing now? We've talked about these in my stalling of time. We're communicating the workforce and operations intent of providing information. That's okay. We'll get there, I believe. The workforce and operations, and then the transparency piece. I'll show up, the team will show up, we'll provide information. There is definitely a gray spot between providing feedback and then what's actually implemented. I've said this a few times in employee forum. Everybody will be listened to. There ultimately is going to be a decision. And then my hope is that we have alignment of support of the decision. Everyone here has the chance to stay or go. And I think figuring out, the overall mission of the university to me always continuously stays in place and the service that it does. But I am not going to stand up here and say, hey, everything for every individual employee is going to be even better throughout the course of Service First. There are going to be challenges. And I'm not going to mislead in saying that, everybody's positions will be exactly the way it is. And then the shifting of individuals, I will show up with information of what we're doing and how we're doing it in the discrete functional areas that we're launching across the Service First platform. Next slide. How are we communicating? I just want to continuously harp on the well. That is the defined communication channel for Service First and the university. We've talked about separate emails out to staff. We've talked about separate emails out to faculty. We keep coming back to centralizing through the well, and it's myriad of different communications throughout the week. And which I appreciated, Rebecca starting with the website today, that we'll continue to use the website for information. A lot of the things have been requested on employee forum, all the way down to the glossary of terms is embedded on that website now. And so if there are additional enhancements, whether at the unit level or at the global level for Service First, if you'll continue just to ask, we'll do all of our best effort to get that into place. Next slide. There has been a lot of publicity around Service First. I shouldn't say a lot of publicity. There's been a few news articles around Service First, whether it's locally with the DTH, more at the state level with the NNO, News Observer out of Raleigh. And so the information around that, I think, does show different perspectives of what Service First is and what it can be. But just putting a note that the fact that there is continued to be a desire to report on the information of what we're doing. And just like what we've been providing to you all with each of these articles, whenever a third-party reporter reaches out, I'm open to making comments. So we're not hiding from that. third-party kind of presentation of information. And then as we get different ones that come up, we'll continue to provide it for your reference if you're interested in those. Next slide. So what you will see moving forward, to me, it is having the information that you all provided at the listening sessions and then the accountability of discreetly responding to them. The information that Ty and the team shared 2 Fridays ago, there's other slides that I will be providing back to Employee Forum that goes through every single request. Right. And so there's going to be things that we can make progress on, and there's going to be some that I will be very transparent. There's not going to be movement on. I don't know each of those yet, but the aggregate slides you see here today aren't the final content that we're going to deliver back on those first 2 listening sessions. And so the opportunities that we've been trying to open up, whether it's the monthly office hours or its ongoing ability and willingness to meet directly with team members that will show up and be able to provide that information. Last slide on follow up with Employee Forum or the listening session. So 3 ways to engage. If you're just tuning in to Service First and Employee Forum, the listening sessions, as was noted, I will say this is the least members of Employee Forum I've seen in place. So I don't know if they're getting numb or everybody's got something cool to do this Friday, which is probably the case as the weather warms up. But
it has been a long semester.
yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I'm with you.
Yeah, 142 online currently.
Don't be defensive.
No, you're fine. I don't want to offend the people online.
The comment of us showing up physically and presenting, and then also the delegates, is much appreciated, right? Because the questions are different, the engagement is different. And so we welcome it, and we're appreciative of the online participants as well. And then submitting feedback, the first page that Rebecca pulled up had where the feedback could go. We do respond to those. We use a lot of the questions that came in over the past 2 or 3 weeks to tee up questions for this past office hours. The first office hours we had 2 months ago, it was full of questions. We went almost 75 minutes. This one is a little more reserved initially, but we started asking questions that were sent in. So we'll continue to use that style. If you called into those and you have recommendations of a different approach or a different way to do those office hours, if you could let me know, that would be really welcome. But we do intend to continue scheduling those. If you've been online, I think we scheduled them initially for the first 4 months because we weren't sure if people would show up, but it's been good. We had over 50 people on Wednesday. And so we'll continue to provide those. We may take a little bit of a summer break in July, but depending on availability and where things will go, we'll be slowly finishing out the semester as well and then gearing up for the fall semester. So those are the follow-up slides to Employee Forum listening sessions. Do you want to take questions on that, or?
Go ahead and do that because I do have a few in the chat. How is the finance team considering and addressing the fact that these salary increases, and this might actually be a follow-up for Nate, so let me know if that is, are not keeping up with cost of living for this area? Pulling us down to 2019 spending feels like we are ignoring how 2020 changed all markets, food, housing, fuel, healthcare, and isn't a win from the staff perspective.
I'll give my personal perspective. I'm not the CFO, COO, but that's a constant conversation, whether it's at the unit level with the financial leads that I've been working with over the course of the last 7 years, the deans, the vice chancellors. As Nate mentioned, there are some accepted challenges with being an employee of the University of North Carolina. One of those is the partnership with the system office. So on my end of being able to have a little bit behind the scenes, I do know and I do believe there's always good faith effort to close those gaps. Now, that good faith effort means showing up, presenting data, but at the end of the day, some of those efforts are just told no. And it doesn't dismiss the fact that we won't do it again next month and the following month. So I don't have a direct answer with that of what is being done today, other than the fact I do feel really good about the fact that the leadership team and all the units that knows the issues with salary discrepancies, equity on campus, and then continuing to try to steward being a voice with the state on being able to get the monies that we can, and then doing the wholehearted best to provide support for growth. And then also being able to hopefully have more of a partnership with individual staff members and faculty members. When that's not meeting your expectation, what are other avenues and pathways to get to where you want to go throughout your career?
I've got a comment from Jennifer Jean-Baptiste. Highly encourage others to attend the Service First office hours. I find them super insightful, and it's an opportunity to ask individual questions. I am thankful they started offering these. Kira Jones, you've mentioned that the well is central communications for Service First. Can you share what the open rate and other metrics are for students? I think this is important to know and share with those of us who work in student services. We continue to hear students aren't aware of the changes. And if the well is the central point of communication and students aren't actually reading it, then it seems like a conversation about other communication channels needs to be considered.
I'll have to get that data.
Okay.
It's a great question. We've been monitoring open rates. We feel like they're above traditional email open rates, but I'll get that information since we've been more or less sending that out. I don't know if we can discern between faculty involvement, staff engagement versus students, but the information we've got, at least in terms of overall open rates and read-throughs, we'll be able to provide.
And related to that, a question from Kira. Many students aren't aware of the impact Service First cuts are having on the university and their future campus experience. When the optics of events like tailgating with Ludacris make it seem like things are business as usual, it creates a false sense of stability. What communication strategies, campaigns are being explored to ensure transparency for students so they understand the impact?
Honestly, right now, from the student direction, the main thing is the well. And on our end, in the fall of last year, there was outreach from the incoming president, vice president in that group. We invited that team of student leaders to participate in task forces. They didn't respond. That's the truth, right? And so I did not go back to them to beg them to participate. So we've got a new group coming in.
We do.
Right? And so we can start there, which I think is perfect timing. And the approach where, honestly, I think some of the leaders at that point were skeptical that Service First would sustain through the year. Right? Because as a university trying to do this a few times, we haven't gotten past the 6 to 9 month point of things are still here. And the intent is to do it. And so the engagement with the students has been limited, other than the communications that we've been sending out. I think this is a healthy kind of pivot to see if the new team wants to do that, and we will provide an update on that in future meetings.
I think we can go ahead and move on to your next section.
Yeah, I'm going to team up with Link. I'm going to knock these out because I know Link had back and forth between meetings. So the next slide, where are we with the HR evaluation work stream? If you're not familiar with the term work stream, it definitely is what we're using to categorize different areas of work and focus. A few that we've repeatedly talked about in employee forums since mid-fall is the HR evaluation, the KPIs, metrics value dashboard, the process standardization work stream, and then the workflow and technology enablement work stream, which we'll provide updates on. The HR evaluation for me, in my perspective, is definitely the heaviest lift of being able to evaluate the overall organizational structure currently with what is the preferred operating model of groupings across campus. When the steering committee decided in the fall of last year that we were going to internally do the HR evaluation, there's a lot of unanswered questions about how long would that take? It's why you see a lot of universities, again, hire a third party to come in and rapidly do this segment or work stream of work for this evaluation. Our intent is to still use our internal team bandwidth-wise. As I said in January and February, the first functional areas that were selected have been university communications and marketing and IT. And we've made progress, which Beth Keith is on, and she'll give the UCM update. The HR group with Link and his leadership team will continue to steward through this. Next up, functional areas include finance procurement, research administration, followed by HR. I own hopefully calendaring that out for the rest of this year based off of what we have done with UCM and IT. And so when it comes to some of the questions about, okay, when is this going to get real for my area? I don't have that totally calendared out by functional area yet, but I will for subsequent employee forums start giving timelines of where we feel like the HR evaluation will be concluded for certain functional areas. The unit level evaluations will happen that we've been talking about, and then implementation targets will be set from there. And so calendaring that out is something the steering committee is interested in doing based off of our current HR evaluation and the status where it is. Next slide. So the timeline, as I mentioned, the IT administrative grouping, when I say grouping, if you still are asking what is that? Simplistically, as I explained the operating model, we really have 4 groupings. We've got the self-service grouping, we've got the health sciences grouping, we've got the academic and professional schools grouping, and we have the administrative grouping. With the HR evaluation for UCM, they evaluated all those groupings to get to what they're implementing. For IT, the target is to start with the administrative group, and then over time, the timing of the academic, professional, and health sciences will happen. We've kicked off the self-service meetings with the deans of the self-service units. We had a kickoff meeting about 6 weeks ago. Our first operating group meeting for those will start next week. And the intent of that with the self-service units is to follow the guidelines and principles of service first. So being able to start reporting out on progress, self-service grouping, UCM, and also the administrative group for IT are the requests that I've heard from the employees of how do we know it's going well? And the intent as we roll this out is to provide that quantitative and qualitative data of how things are progressing. So next slide is the University Communications and Marketing. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth. It's just one slide to provide an update of where we are with UCM.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me join. So as Scott said, we are moving through our HR evaluation and our implementation phase for communications and marketing. I do want to really clarify for communications and marketing, we're going to have 2 phases, and we're looking at phase 1 right now. So we're working with communications and marketing in schools and major units being the ones that report up to vice chancellors. Our phase 2, which will start in the summer and fall, will be what we're calling secondary units, centers, institutes, academic departments, and revenue generating auxiliaries. And that's because phase 1 has a more straightforward funding sources and personnel. And as many of you know, there's a lot of complexities when we start looking at centers, institutes, and academic departments. So where we are right now, we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, working with our senior communicators, our deans and vice chancellors. In last semester, the fall semester, we had multiple conversations with our senior communicators and our deans to talk about what the scope of their work is and what their teams do. And then working through the HR evaluation with the data that Link's team has provided, we've been matching up what that would mean for our operational model. And I can just quickly let you know 3 of the highlights for our operational model. Number 1, our senior communicators are going to stay within the units and have a dotted line into UCM. Number 2, we do have some functions that will move centrally to UCM. Those are photo, video, writers, graphic designers, and web planning and production. And then there are people who will stay with the senior communicator out in the unit. And then 3, university development team will be moving into UCM. Those are the main highlights that as it relates to this. So once we made those decisions and identified the people who and where they will be either staying or moving, we had the individual meetings with the senior communicators. And then on March 26th, we presented our operational model to all communicators at our Communications Council. We had over 200 people present there, and we were able to take questions and answers. And then now we have started conducting meetings with the individuals who are moving to UCM to let them know and to have more information. I will say that we are working out a lot of logistics when it comes to those moves. So we will be communicating regularly with our communicators. When we look at the staffing on the right side of this slide, we have a lot of data that we're looking through in the HR evaluation. When it goes specifically to phase 1, we identified about 150 positions that were in scope for these primary units. And it's important to see that high comms relevance, that is looking at job descriptions, titles, and percentage breakdowns to see that that there are truly they are a communicator and a marketer and not just someone who has like 10% of communications in their job description. In those functions that I said are moving to UCM, we've identified 35 people to move and join our team. There will be 22 dotted line employees to UCM, that is the senior communicators, and then approximately 86 are staying out in their units or were considered not in scope. And there's good examples of that, say someone who is half communications, half ITS. And really, truly, we looked we started very macro with the numbers and then went and dialed into individual status and scope. I'm not sure, Scott, if you want me to take questions or have anything else that I should cover.
Well, I feel like this would be a good time to ask questions just about the HR evaluation in general and UCM, if you think we've got time to do that. The rest of my slides are kind of work stream updates. Just you can tell me to be quiet whenever you need to end. But yeah, I would love just if we could do questions for HR evaluation overall in UCM now.
Sure. And one of the questions, and Beth, this might be a question more for you, in terms of the folks that are moving into UCM from their current positions, or their current reporting structures. A couple of folks have reached out to the forum or to me directly and mentioned that they are having to shift their work from a primarily remote work environment to being primarily in person, requiring them to move from where they have been working remote for years. Given the cost of living here and the fact that folks often live a good deal outside of Chapel Hill because of the cost of living, how are you addressing those concerns? Is this a shift we can expect for everybody moving to UCM? But knowing that keeping qualified and highly skilled folks happy and productive is really important. I was just curious what you could say regarding having to relocate and no longer be a primarily remote employee.
Yes, and I totally hear you. I know that flexibility is really something that's important and highly valued by our workforce, and it's something that we've definitely addressed here too. UCM for the past 3 years, maybe, since Cameron Farwell joined us, our previous vice chancellor has been on a 4-1 schedule. So we have our employees come in 4 days a week, and then they are remote 1 day a week, and you're either remote Monday or Friday. We feel and we have seen that this is best for collaboration because I know that we are people who need flexibility. I certainly, as a working parent, need that, and everyone has their own circumstances that require it. But we have seen with our creative teams and our strategic planning teams that we need to be able to have those in-person collaborative moments. And so that is something that will be important to us. We are working to address individual needs and flexibility, give people enough time to make those accommodations.
And then we are also working with facilities, as I think the one thing that we can all agree on here is that facilities are tight here on campus. So we're still looking for a facility that our larger team could have. So there may be a little bit of transition time before we ask people to do the 4-1.
Keith, I see your hand up.
Yes, and this question may be out of the scope of, and it's not necessarily for you, Beth, it's probably more so for Scott, and it may be determined upon the completion of HR evaluations. But the question is, and this is purely my curiosity, has athletics been pulled out of every part of Service First, or is it just certain workflows where they are not a part of Service First?
At this time, athletics is out of scope. Now, the
For
steering
everything.
committee for everything. Yes, sir. Yeah, at this point. Now, the steering committee, when they made that decision last fall, that's come up a few times because there's a fair amount of overlap across these functional areas of what is within athletics, but then outside of athletics, but still support these functional areas. I would forecast, Keith, that most likely that decision will be revisited at some point once we get the larger university situated. But at this point, athletics is out of scope. The steering committee has kind of, again, put a pin in the fact that it could revisit it.
Okay. Follow up to that. As of to date, what characteristics is it that athletics has that would put them out of scope as opposed to other? Like, what is the special niche thing about athletics that would set them aside from the rest of the university who has to go through this process? I'm really truly just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand the thought process, because if we are truly going through this and doing the whole one university, one voice, one, like, and I understand there are separate monies and separate things. If we're looking, because I'm seeing it in the chat saying separate monies, but development has separate monies. University hospitals has separate monies. I'm just trying to fully understand what is it about athletics that sets them apart from, and it's not just with Service First, because we see this all the time with athletics. There's the standard, and then there's the rules, the policy, the standard, and then there's athletics.
So I'll give you my non-Service First personal opinion as an employee, a staff member, all those things. Honest, and I guess from a Service First perspective, when it was originally talked about in the summer into the really early fall, it was still a unknown. And ultimately it became, if you think back to the fall, there was also a box on Service First that was academic operations. So the steering committee was grappling with the academic operations, and then some of the original slides had athletics out there. And it became clear that the concern with trying to do the in-scope functional areas across everything, we needed to start eliminating some things that could be folded into Service First, like the academic operations, which I think with student success and what James and the new provost are intending to do will continue to steward with the service and quality enhancements that are a part of Service First. And then athletics was just that separate entity at this point. So I don't want to overcomplicate it. I mean, I think, Keith, exactly the complexities of the size and scope of Service First, coupled with the revenue stream and support structure that the university has with athletics as a priority, is why it was out of scope for Service First at this point. And I'm sure the athletic director and the chancellor would give a much more efficient answer. But since I'm here, I just would be remiss not to at least share my personal perspective in some of the conversations of inclusion with Service First back in the summer and fall.
Okay, no worries. I mean, if I see Lee or Bubba, I'll ask them.
I know you will. Please do report back. I'm sure everybody would be interested to hear that, but it's a fair question.
I have a question as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
Audrey.
Great, thank you. I've asked you this before in, I think, the like communications meeting, but I work in annual giving and I work with Keith almost daily, if not at least weekly, on projects that raise millions of dollars for the university. And my understanding is that moving forward, I will gratefully get to continue working with Keith, but all of the graphic designers, videographers, copy editors, creatives that we have worked with will be pulled out of development and we will have to request support, apply for support, beg for support. And we have projects that we need to start working on this summer. I understand with the new interlocking UNC brand identity for the entire university, we've had to modify our Giving Day brand, which raised $10 million. And we need help for that immediately. And the woman, Caroline Norton, who's been involved in that brand design, is now going to be reporting to UCM. I would rather work with her than have to explain to a new graphic designer 10 years of our Giving Day. So, how is that going to actually operationally work? And how is it benefiting me, the client, if the whole point of this is to make things easier and standardized?
I can address that, Scott.
Please.
The really the intention behind having university development, communications, and marketing join UCM is that when we look at the campaign, the previous campaign, we did not have a centralized marketing team or even marketing branding at that time. Carolina has never had a centralized marketing team until about a year and a half ago, when Adrian King joined us and we started building that team and creating the new branding and the new campaign. So when we look at the next campaign and a lot of the great work that we already do together, that would, I'm sorry, Mark. Yeah, thank you. The We need to be more aligned and working together on the marketing. That's not saying that we haven't been. I believe that that Holly's team has been fabulous partners over the years. And it's not that we're fixing something that's broken. It's that we are, adapting to the new reality that we have at UCM and with development. When it comes to those day-to-day questions, certainly, we are still figuring out the workflow. I can guarantee you that I will never require anyone to beg for resources, for sure, whether they're in development or any other campus unit. What we really want to stress is that this is a strategic partnership. And so we want to work with people from the front end to make sure that these campaigns and these projects are collaborative and that people aren't having to put in tickets or wait for resources. I can't guarantee or tell you what the future will look like, but we certainly are committed to making sure that we are more collaborative throughout the space.
I mean, that's kind of an answer, but at the end of the day, like, who is going to film videos for development projects? Like, I don't like this is all happening by June 30th. And by June 30th, I want to be planning our Giving Day next year. And we need the brand updated and we need the website updated. And our website guy is going to UCM. So, like, do I have a direct line to those people or do I have to go through you?
Those are the workflows that we're figuring out now. We certainly are looking at having people stay. People will have portfolios and they will be able to be still connected to their previous schools or units, because we see how that subject matter expertise is important and that historical knowledge. We certainly don't want to have to begin from the beginning or from ground zero. And what would happen is that, if someone has development in their portfolio and they previously worked in development, for example, those people would be the people that you're working with and would be your main point of contact through, a strategic planner. We certainly will be communicating the workflow and the specific questions and answers as we build it out. I can understand that there's a lot of frustration with the transition and the changes, but we are committed to making sure that, you know, the work is still high quality and that our people are able to access communications and marketing as they need.
All right, thank you both. In the interest of time, I'm going to send the questions and comments in the chat along to Scott after the meeting. I do want to give him an opportunity to briefly go over the other work stream updates that he has, and then we'll shift into our next agenda item. Scott?
Yeah, appreciate the time. The only other comment on the HR evaluation is we think about 3 weeks from now, I think we have another employee forum. So we'll have additional UCM updates, but also we'll add in where the IT administrative group is. Hit it twice, knock this slide out.
All right, so move from that one.
Move one more.
Okay,
There you go. Perfect right there.
Perfect.
And so you've seen this slide, the roadmap, you know, where we are, the addition of the blue just documents. If you weren't aware of the Board of Trustee resolution, and then the intent by the June 30th request of being able to submit to them, not a final, hey, everything's implemented, but here are potential reduction targets. We've got initial framing for that, which I'm hoping over the course of the next few weeks, similar conversation here around what the plan is for that $25 million. As Nate has mentioned, and here a few times, attrition has been a focus, and then subsequent targets as we move forward with service first by functional area, we will share with campus. Next slide. A little bit different image, content you've seen before. We're continuing to try to evolve where our work stream taxonomy can be something that you all are at least aware of. As I mentioned, the HR evaluation we've talked about on the KPI and dashboard, progress continues to be made with that. The hope is that the self-service units will start measuring some of their data effective April 1. We're going to have to retroactively do that, but trying to use the information we got either internally or externally with different processes, work processes across the functional areas, and we're using the self-service units for that initial perspective. This will extend in the UCM work as those workflows get into place, and then subsequent with the IT as well. Workstream 8 is our partnership with operational excellence. We've got a list of different processes across functional areas. And so Rick Wernoski and his team will slowly start rolling out different projects that focus on functional process enhancements that are connected to the in-scope functional areas. And then a new work stream we haven't talked about in the past is the implementation roadmap and phasing. We saw a little bit of that with the UCM and then the plans for the IT and administrative group. Pilots that we've been working on, I talked about self-service, the merged School of Data and Information Sciences, the old SILS data science is fastly upcoming. July 1 is the target, and what would that structure look like? And then some needs within the school social work and partnering with that dean and the team there to be able to try to get some additional support across the health sciences group for some of their needs. Next slide. More detail on process standardization. Read it at your leisure. Next slide. And then it drops into the workflows and technology enablement. Hopefully you all noted Nate's comment of the budget process of actually sequestering money to enhance systems. I was kind of surprised we didn't do that on an ongoing basis, but it's clear that the systems that we use for those functional areas, getting them to 2026 or close to 2026 versions is intentfully hoped for as we get into the upcoming fiscal year. We're going to launch a assessment across campus direct to the deans and vice chancellors. I'm sure many of you will probably get that request as well, but we're starting with them. Individual emails to each unit to be able to assess current software platform use across each of the entities and aggregately report that out at subsequent meetings. Next slide. And this just walks through the steps of that around workflows and technology enablement. Last slide, what's next? This is the framing I had mentioned a little bit ago around laying out what each of the functional areas will look like with some target dates. You'll note the June 1 that Beth mentioned. As we get information next week, the IT administrative grouping reports out to the steering committee next Friday. So hopefully some progress and support for that, which would spin us into these unit level meetings. The unit level meetings are defined as deans or vice chancellors responsible for those units. So each functional area has an anchored 2-week time period post the initial steering committee approval to get that unit level feedback. This is something the deans have been asking for since October of last year. We worked on that with UCM, and then the model that we'll have for IT will lock that into place. Next slide.
That's it.
That's it.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. And it looks like my guest speaker has just arrived, so not giving you a chance to rest, am I, Adolfo? But we do have a special guest today. Adolfo Alvarez is the outgoing president of the Student Body Association, or Student Government Association, sorry. I was thinking Student Bar Association, which is my world of the law school. And microphone, oh, there it is. Wanted to give him a chance to speak with us about his experience in the last year. He and Beth Morocco, the chair of the faculty council, and I have worked very closely throughout the year through many different challenges. And so I will go ahead and turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. I see Audrey on Zoom. I worked with Audrey over development at some point in my undergraduate career. Hello, everyone. You have seen me before. I addressed the employee forum back in February of last year when I got elected. It's been a while. Time goes by really fast, but my name is Adolfo. For those who don't know me yet, I served as the student vice president of UNC. My term ended this past Tuesday, so that was the last day that I served in my capacity. And as Rebecca said, this year has been nothing short of challenging for all of us. I think it has been a year where we have seen what happens when institutional decisions are not made with the best processes. And I know that that will continue to be an ongoing conversation as Service First takes off. I came in my term when Service First started to be a concept, when the cuts were starting to be identified, and staff had a lot of questions. Staff still have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, which, at the BOT has been a very interesting thing to represent, because at times I've had to talk to Rebecca about what concerns staff has, and, in my limited capacity as a trustee, elevate those concerns. When we've heard about Service First, at times I've elevated the questions of, how are you going to make sure that the staff morale remains a priority? And most of the times I haven't received an answer that's more, I guess, significant than the one that you guys have received. And so if there's anything I can say is that I have a lot of solidarity for you all. I know that uncertainty will remain an ongoing conversation until the work of Service First is exhausted, which will not be anytime soon, probably. It's my understanding that the first $7 million cuts will be enacted by the end of the fiscal year, right? And then we have the other $17 million that were put on top of that, which will take another fiscal year to be implemented. But I just want to say that I think students appreciate staff a lot. At least I do. You guys are one of the main components of the university, and I think that often you will hear the words inefficient or the words that there has to be consolidation of people, but without you all, we wouldn't have the experiences that we have as students. And oftentimes, we only see faculty, and faculty and students interact with each other in the classroom, but it is really you all who make sure that we have the technology that our classrooms need, that we have all the equipment, that we have all the support, that people support student organizations, that if you have a questions about your classes or your enrollment or your financial aid, or you need an advisor, that there are people there to support you. And we're incredibly grateful for what you all do. So I know that next year I'll keep looking from the outside about how the institution evolves, and it's my hope that the administration can understand that staff uncertainty is important. The same way that when tenure became a problem and tenure was halted by the board, it became a priority to make sure that those tensions were relieved. It is my hope that the administration will be more careful about how to deal with staff uncertainty. I know that employment is an easier trigger to pull because it's just employment at the end of the day. That's how it is treated legally, but staff are more than just a number. and it's more than just a consolidation effort. And I think that there's a lot of improvement the university has to do to address that, because otherwise we're not going to retain the kind of people that the university deserves. Long term, people will look at other options. They will look elsewhere for where to work, because staff morale is important, and y'all are people, and we appreciate you. So I want to present something to Rebecca today, and it's a proclamation on behalf of myself. So I'm going to read it. And yeah. So this is a proclamation by the president of the student body recognizing Rebecca Howell for distinguished service to the students and employees of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Whereas the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is trained by leaders who demonstrate compassion, courage, and unwavering commitment to the well-being of its community. And whereas Rebecca Howell, as chair of the UNC Employee Forum, offers thoughtful leadership to the university staff governance and ensures employee voices are included in institutional decisions. And whereas through her leadership, she has supported university employees whose contributions are essential to the student experience, recognizes that Carolina student success depends on the strength of its staff. And whereas she has collaborated with student leaders to ensure institutional decisions address the needs of both employees and students. And whereas she has led with empathy and strength during significant uncertainty for university staff, including financial pressures and structural changes, serving as a steady and trusted voice for the Carolina community. And whereas her leadership extends beyond institutional responsibilities, as she has advocated for LGBTQ rights and supported students and community members, particularly immigrant communities, during times of hand concern and enforcement in the Triangle region. And whereas during a politically charged period for higher education and the broader community, she has shown a commitment to dignity, inclusion, and the protection of all members of the Carolina community. And whereas I'm grateful for the opportunity to work alongside her and for her leadership, partnership, and commitment to supporting both students and staff at Carolina. Now, therefore, I, Adolfo Alvarez, student body president of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, do hereby recognize and honor Rebecca Howell for her distinguished service and her enduring contributions to the students and employees of this university. And thank you all. Stay strong. I know it's easier said than done, but there are a lot of people standing behind you all. And I will also leave a short proclamation for Katie. That I hope you get to Katie
today. So
yes. So if you can get this to Katie, I also have something for her. But
thank you.
thank you very much. And any questions? I'll take any questions or points.
Is it? I can't tell if this is on. Thank you so much, and I hope you've had a wonderful year, and thanks for all the work you've done that many of us can't even see you and your role doing. And do you have any advice, and we can take it later on if we're running out of time, for how we can intersect meaningfully with students, with people in your role and in the student governance? Please give us your wisdom on your way out.
Yeah, I think that definitely I think this year was a lot of crisis management, if I'm honest. You know, very often we had when Rebecca, Beth, and I got together, it was mostly to address things that were happening. I remember very clearly some things I can tell you: the mural, Professor Dixon's scandal, then immigration enforcement, the Triangle, the area study center. So really things that brought us together, for better or for worse. But I think that student government needs to be a strong partner of the employee forum to amplify the importance of recognizing staff. At the end of the day, the student body president sits on the board of trustees. And at times, even if you can't enact meaningful change, it's important for someone to challenge decisions at that level of governance. And so I think that engaging with the university, with student leadership is important. And I think the way that our governance structure is, the way our governance structure is not ideal, but at times you find yourself having to be the person who represents the other two sides on the board. I mean, Rebecca was just able to speak at the board this time for the first time in 2 years. And so I think that student leadership does have a big implications, at least to elevate concerns and that they're on the record, so that when you go forward and say, oh, we didn't hear those things, yes, you did. And we raised them at some point. So, yeah.
And I don't know how many of you have an opportunity or taken the opportunity to watch the Board of Trustees meetings. They can be incredibly intense. Very heated at times. This past one was very surprisingly quiet. But I have been incredibly impressed with Adolfo's advocacy at each of those meetings. I have absolutely zero doubt in my mind that you are the reason that the employee forum and the faculty council were invited back to speak to the Board of Trustees. And we are incredibly, incredibly grateful for that opportunity. I know you're still in the planning stages for what you're doing after commencement, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how far you go. You have served the student body well with the new professional closet that you opened last week? In August, okay. Opens in August, but they have put together an amazing resource for our students, have advocated for better access to food and with our Carolina Food Pantry, but has just done an incredible amount of work to support the staff, and I am truly grateful for that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you know, it takes a village at the
It
end
does
of the
take a
day.
village.
And that advocacy with the board's it's been complicated and an interesting line to navigate, but I made it a mission this year to find a way for me to have a bigger voice, which you have to earn. You have to work to earn that voice. And at the end of the day, you have to gain their respect so that you can have these agreements with them. But at the last meeting, I talked to them about come to our classrooms and come see our dining halls. Perhaps I think about what this board could accomplish if you were to be more connected to the university community. And so it felt good. It felt like some progress. And it's my hope that university governance can release some tension in the next few years. And we can stop using that language of taking arrows and being at war with each other, because it's just not going to take us anywhere. But thank you again for having me. I'm very appreciative. And yeah.
One thing.
Yes, Keith.
Adolfo, you came into this room and acknowledged Audrey and said nothing, like I'm not even here.
Oh
And
no.
we actually
No, it's
shared
because
a
Audrey was on the
space.
screen.
It's okay. It's okay. I will remember that. But
To be
mostly,
fair, he cannot see
I
who is
will-
online. It
I
was just
will
Audrey was our last
remember-
speaker.
I will remember your dedication as president. And we do truly appreciate it. And you know that I adore you. So congratulations on graduation. Thank you for all that you have done on behalf of staff. Because I know it's not been an easy thing.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. Really appreciate you, Adolfo. All right. Wrapping up, we have our consent agenda. Do I have any committees who would like to pull themselves out of the consent agenda for an update? Speak now. Or somebody make a motion.
I will pull out, I would like to pull out staff assembly.
Pull out staff assembly. Anything else?
I'd like to pull out awards and recognition.
Okay. And then Carolina Engagement Council. Any others? Except for those, oh, go for it.
Sorry, pull out DEI committee. Thank you.
Sure. If there are no others, those four shall be pulled out. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, excluding those four?
So moved, Keith.
All right, Keith and Elizabeth moved. Do I have a second?
Second,
Do
Mercedes.
I have, thank you. Do I have discussion? By acclamation, do I have anybody objecting? No. All right, approved. Natasha, I'll start with you. They are very finicky, yes.
Okay, I think I'm on now.
You
Okay,
are on now.
so I am your friendly employee forum delegate on the Carolina Engagement Council. And I'm going to name that I'm still grasping a little bit about what the Carolina Engagement Council does. But something that I wanted to share was the Carolina Engagement Council has overseen the Carolina Across 100 initiative for the last 5 years. They've been trying to get engagement projects in all 100 counties of North Carolina. That milestone has officially been reached for the first time. So that was a really exciting point for the group during our meeting the other day. The other thing that I wanted to share was Carolina Engagement Council is also putting together a database of projects that exist across the university that engage with surrounding counties or do any type of service engagement work within the state, whether it's research, service learning, so on and so forth. I will send along the link and information to Rebecca to share out with the forum, but I just wanted to create space that if folks are doing great work that they want to highlight or have opportunities for other folks to get involved, the Carolina Engagement Council wants to hear about it. The database is still in beta testing a little bit, so it's not fully public, but folks are able to submit projects. You'll get access to view what your project looks like in the database. And then once it fully gets launched into a public view, you would be able to see what that looks like so that if folks want to get more connected with any kind of great work that you're doing that has to do with engagement and service, it can be highlighted through that database. So more information to come, but just wanted to get that out there. And if anyone has questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Any questions? Seeing none, I will move on to Sarah and the DEI committee.
Hi. Thank you, everyone. Meant to have a survey ready to share today, but it will go out next week via email. We'll work with Matt, but the DEI committee is officially becoming renamed, and that requires the entire forum. And so we are pulling input from you all as kind of a gaps analysis. We did one as a committee, and that narrowed our focus. And so just be on the lookout, please, for an email from Matt via us with a survey. It will probably only be open a week so that we can then vote on a new name for the committee and get rolling for next year. Thank you.
Any questions for Sarah? Thanks, Sarah. Seeing none, it appears I'm going in backwards order. So I believe recognition and awards. Lisa and Julie. And a dog. We'll add the dog to the conversation.
I just wanted to thank everybody who submitted nominations for our awards and recognition this cycle. We received a little over 170 total for the awards and recognition, and then additional 20 plus for our bigger award that we will be reviewing. So thank you all. And to those on the committee I have sent all of the assignments out, but thank you all for your continued support of our wonderful employees here at UNC-Chapel Hill.
And thanks to you and Julie and Matt for pulling all of this together and getting ready to do the award evaluations. I know that's a tough job.
He is amazing at what he does and greatly appreciate all of his assistance.
Awesome.
Oh,
And then any questions?
no, I want to say one thing, Rebecca.
Yes,
If
Julie.
people, when Lisa sent out the forms and the nomination list yesterday to everybody, if you have issues with the form I can that I designed via Rebecca's template, just let me know, because something may be missing or wrong or something. So just let me know, okay?
And I think you guys that are doing the evaluations will find that Julie did incredible work pulling together hopefully a simpler way to do evaluation for each of our participants in the evaluation process. So thanks, Julie. All right, Keith Hines, update on the UNC System Staff Assembly.
Yes, when I pulled this out, I didn't know Lisa was online until she spoke up. So I'm gonna let her have my staff assembly time, because I'm not gonna steal her shine, because this is her ministry, not mine. I was just gonna make an announcement, but I'm gonna let her do that.
Okay.
Just want to alert everybody that UNC-Chapel Hill was the official winner for the Chancellor's Cup Golf Tournament for this year. Our tournament will be held on September 29th. So if anybody is interested in helping out and volunteering, please reach out to myself or the wonderful group at Chapel Hill that completed the proposal. You guys put a huge amount of effort into that, and that was definitely highlighted when we presented the proposal. So thank you all very much. And we have began starting in planning. So if anybody has any questions or would like to help, just reach out to myself. I know Keith was a part of that, Natalia was a part of that, Annetta was a part of that, and I apologize, there are a couple more, but you guys did amazing, and thank you for highlighting our wonderful university.
Thank you. And we're very excited about moving forward with the golf tournament this year.
To answer Teresa's question, I'm gonna say, Teresa, put on a Carolina shirt and come on out. It's fine.
Absolutely,
We got it.
I agree.
All right. Thank you all very much. Next on the agenda, in new business, we have resolution 2602 concerning sexual assault and sexual harassment. Do I have the person that had drafted that? Was that you, Matt? Previous years? Okay. So this has to go through 2 readings. Let me just go ahead and pull it up here. And we will do a first reading if I can find it. There it is. Now I just have to share the thing. I have too many screens. Hopefully that is the correct screen. And it is. So this, I will, so folks can see it online and I can see it. Maybe, maybe not. All right. Thank you, Adolfo. Have a great one. Resolution 2602 concerning sexual assault and sexual harassment. Resolution of the Employee Forum, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Whereas the mission of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill's Employee Forum is to advocate for and constructively address the challenges, needs, and opportunities of UNC-Chapel Hill employees, and to continually improve the quality of life at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for its students, faculty, and employees through mutual understanding, recognition of employee contributions, and respect for the worth of the individual. And whereas the month of April has been designated Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the United States to pursue the ever-present need of raising public awareness about sexual assault, educating communities and individuals on how to respond to instances of sexual assault, and building the necessary community-level social and cultural change needed to prevent sexual assault. And whereas sexual assault is having or attempting to have sexual contact with another individual without consent, and sexual harassment is unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature or offensive remarks about a person's sex. And whereas there are employee and student members of the UNC-Chapel Hill campus community who are primary and or secondary survivors of sexual assault and sexual harassment. And whereas there are members of the UNC-Chapel Hill campus who have committed acts of sexual violence, harassment, and assault. And whereas sexual assault affects people of all genders, races, abilities, and sexual orientations, and disproportionately affects individuals ages 12 to 34, women, people of color, people with disabilities, and people who identify as two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, and intersex. And whereas sexual assault and sexual harassment have a significant negative impact on our campus climate and undermine progress toward UNC-Chapel Hill's strategic plan initiative, Build Our Community Together. Actually, I need to remove that one. I'm taking a real quick note to remove that since we no longer have that strategic plan initiative. I didn't catch that on first reading, my fault. Whereas every member of our campus community is entitled to live, learn, and work in an environment that is inclusive and welcoming. And whereas the Employee Forum has declared by resolution in 2008, 2011, 2013, 2015, 2016, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 25, its unequivocal support for the continued development of strong measures to prevent and respond appropriately to incidents of sexual assault and sexual harassment on our campus. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Employee Forum reaffirms its commitment to a safe and inclusive campus community by annually recognizing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, strongly supporting campus, local, and state efforts to prevent violence in all its forms, and connecting victims, survivors of sexual assault and sexual harassment with support and resources. Be it further resolved that the Employee Forum petitions the Equal Opportunity and Compliance Office, the Office of Human Resources, Student Affairs, UNC-Chapel Hill Police, and University Administration to continue to hold and promote Sexual Assault Awareness Month events, support prevention efforts of the university, including the work of violence prevention coordinators, the UNC Gender-Based Violence Prevention Advisory Group, and the recommendations contained in the group's fall 2020 report. Support the work of the Gender Violence Services Coordinator and Care for Victims Survivors. Commit to supporting the Carolina Women's Center, including increased funding and additional staffing that meets the needs of the campus community. Assess the campus climate around issues of sexual assault and sexual harassment, including data collected through Clary Act reporting and cases filed with and investigated by the University Compliance Office. Publish EOC reports more quickly so the campus community has up-to-date information and sexual assault and sexual harassment on campus. Make the findings of that assessment public and communicate about those findings. incorporate community feedback to maintain and annually update the university's policies related to gender-based violence and harassment and related training modules, and hold the perpetrators of sexual assault and sexual harassment accountable. Advance discourse on the systemic and social cultural aspects that enable instances of sexual assault to persist. Signed on behalf of the delegates of the Employee Forum. I'm trying to remember proper procedure. Mercedes? Do I need a motion to consider the proclamation?
I don't actually know that one. Sorry, let me check. Hang on. Let me get my
I
list.
believe I do. So let's just go ahead
I
with
think
that.
we do, yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion to consider the proclamation or resolution? Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the proclamation? I did say I was going to remove the reference to the strategic initiative, which won't change much. But Natasha?
In the be it resolved section of, I believe there's been some renaming of some folks. So violence prevention and advocacy services, I think, is the primary unit on campus. So I would propose, I don't think gender violence services coordinators is an accurate title anymore. I believe all of their staff have gotten retitled. So I would potentially change that third bullet, violence prevention advocacy services. And I'm trying to see if there's anything else that maybe needed up. That was the big one.
Hey, Rebecca, this is Jahan.
Yes, Jahan.
So I work at UCO, and I caught a couple name changes that are still in here, like the old references to Equal Opportunity and Compliance
Yes.
Office are no longer relevant. It was under the Be It Further Resolved. There's also a reference to EOC in here, and we now are UCO.
UCO, got it.
Echoing Natasha for footnote 10, the GVSEs are no longer called that. They now are under that violence prevention and advocacy services. And the footnote itself has a link to their old website.
Okay, I will fix that.
Number 10.
Number 10. Okay.
Similarly, the footnote 7 has a link to our old website and our old name.
It's no UCO, correct?
It's compliance.unc.
Compliance. Got
And
it.
then in the statement above that it's referencing, that statement of every member of the university community is entitled to a safe, diverse, and welcoming community. That is not language that we have published anywhere anymore. So
Where was that
in the
one?
statement above, be it further resolved, that references footnote 7. It's really small on my screen because I have a lot open, sorry. A little higher. Yeah. This quote does not exist anywhere anymore.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, we don't use this language in our slides anymore.
Is this something?
Is there a replacement language that's being used? Sorry,
Not that
this is Julie.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of.
Wow.
Would everyone be comfortable with saying just simply every member of our campus community is entitled to live, learn, and work in an environment that is inclusive and welcoming without a
Quoting it.
footnote?
I support that.
Do I have any objections? All right, footnote gone.
And then the last one I had was the statement above that has footnote number 3 in it, uses a definition of, keep going up, a definition of sexual harassment from, I forget what the footnote is referencing, potentially the EEOC. But I was just going to add, like, this sexual assault definition, footnote 2, comes from our policy. The footnote 3 comes from outside the policy. The policy does define sexual harassment if you wanted it to be consistent and quote both from the same policy.
Can you shoot me a quick email with those new references?
Absolutely.
And I'll update the documentation before it gets sent?
Yes.
Awesome. This first reading, okay. So I can fix that before our second reading, which admittedly will be May, but.
Rebecca, I'll send you all my resolution notes that I wrote.
Beautiful, that will work.
Via email, and then if something's not clear, this is something I stare at all day. So if something's not clear from how I phrased it, we can talk on the phone too.
Yeah, we can definitely get that updated. I know that in the last 12 months, there have been a good deal of changes between the shift from EOC to UCO. So this will be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
My apologies for not reaching out before the first reading.
No, it's okay. I reviewed it and we've absorbed many things.
Yeah.
And I felt seen when we were talking about the university communications and marketing, when I reflect back on what this last year has looked like.
Great, thank you. Ellie?
Hey, I put my question in the chat, but I can also read it. I just had a question about it's the line with the footnote 4 and 5. The acronym is missing the A, and I was wondering why that wasn't included, and would just suggest that we include the A for asexual and aromantic people, as well as everybody else in the queer umbrella.
So add the A here. Oops. Oops, if I can. Intersex and asexual, you said?
Asexual and aromantic is usually what it means.
Okay. Not aromatic, sorry. Can't spell.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other edits? All right, we will bring this forward for a second reading in May at our meeting, and I'll have those edits. Feel free to let me know by email if there's anything that I have misquoted or referenced or need an updated reference for. I'll be happy to do that. Let me stop the share here. And then the only other thing I have is to say thank you to everyone for all the work that they've been doing in the last month in particular. I know it is extremely busy, both in your day jobs, but also with the forum and our delegate elections, award nominations, evaluations, all of those things. So many, many thanks to all of you for chipping in and adding that to your already full plates. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. If you are coming to campus, beware the banana ball tournament that will bringing a lot of traffic and a lot of people that know about a game I did not know existed until this week. So do I have a motion to adjourn? I have one from Elizabeth. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, excellent. I've got lots of seconds. Unless there are objections, I will officially conclude this meeting and see everyone in May. Thank you all very much.